Welcome to the Leadership We Need Now, a space where we talk about kind, compassionate, and courageous leadership. I'm Stacey Dye, and I've been a nonprofit director for over 20 years. I'm also a strategist and an executive coach. Today I want to talk about expert and information overload. I feel like this topic is really relevant as I'm putting information out there and I'm talking about expert advice. But I think that in this moment in time, information overload is a real challenge, especially for nonprofit leaders. We're in a space where we are unsure of the future. We're unsure of what the plan is moving forward. We're worried about services that we're providing. We're worried about the people that we work with and the communities we care about. And for us, looking for help, looking for support, there are so many voices, so many people talking so loud about what to do or what not to do or how to do things. And I think it can be very overwhelming. And in this moment, part of what I want to talk about is not coming forth as an expert and saying, of all those voices, you should listen to mine, but saying that we are all struggling with this. There is no right answer to this. There also is no solution that looks like the perfect solution. And so when we're going through these things, because we have not experienced something like this, at least in my 25 years of experience, have I experienced something like this, where funding is at stake and funders are looking at things different and the states are changing guidelines and they're changing restrictions and opportunities are different than they were even just a year or 6 months ago. And so as we're looking at this information overload, it is so hard, especially when you need help, to kind of quiet some of those voices and seek out and find the help that you want, especially with things like AI that's directing you in certain ways. And so as we're talking about this, the moment right now is this feeling of like expert overload or information overload, where people are continuously putting out information that is either at a percentage of knowledge. So maybe they know a little bit about something and they, send you down a path that maybe won't even happen, or maybe you're not getting enough information. And so the little bit that you get, you're taking and going down a certain path. Or if you're somebody who's new to leadership, new to your position, or new to this experience, which I feel like all of us right now are new to this experience, to find someone through the noise that is talking about real strategies to move forward is really hard. And there's so many things now with paywalls and with memberships and fees and classes and workshops and things like that. Those things are really helpful. But when you're in a moment where you can't absorb one more thing, it's really a difficult time. And I feel like I'm at that moment too. I'm trying to learn new things. And so being able to filter in the things I need and filter out the things that aren't as helpful right now is really a struggle for me, even. With years of experience, I can't imagine what it would feel like if you were new to these positions or new to these experiences. And so a few practical things that I would say is, when you're looking at the needs you have now, whether that's a specific task, whether that's a specific issue. So if you want to learn how to edit videos, you want to learn how to create videos or start a YouTube station, being very specific about what your needs are, not opening it up into a broad category like, how do I start a platform, or how do I get into the social media aspect of the work I do, but making it more specific. I want to learn how to edit 10-minute videos, or I want to start a YouTube station, or I want to, whatever it is that you want to do, that technical piece, you can specifically ask for. I think also if you have very specific needs in terms of how do you manage a team, how do you work with people you don't really like, how do you partner better, how do you build up your endowment, how do you get an endowment, how do you fundraise in this economy and in this environment. And so being specific about it is really important. And I also feel like maybe it is something that you do Google searches and can find those things that way, but maybe it's also finding people that you trust and that you see as successful and asking them to not just maybe, you know, give you a blanket information, but if you have specific questions, I think it's perfectly okay to ask someone to help you work through that. I've never really turned anybody down who said, hey, listen, I'm looking at this grant. Would you mind looking at it? Or I really would like to fundraise for this. Do you have any ideas? I've always opened my doors to those ideas because that's the way I work, and that's the way I like to work, is to bounce ideas off of somebody and form partnerships and relationships and use somebody else's ideas and expertise to add to the things that I'm doing. And so I think if you're specific and if you can find someone who you really trust and who you like the way they do things, I think that's a great opportunity. I think on the another technical piece of that is also understanding that you may receive information that is skewed or biased in a way that was relevant years ago, right? Like I always, I remember being really frustrated as a participant in speaking engagements or trainings or things like that, where people would talk about things the way they did things 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. And I would be like, that's not really relevant. I mean, we're going through a pandemic. You can't really use that example. Or you can't really use that example. They've cut all the resources for that. So that's not even something that's a viable option. And so I think as you're taking in information, making sure to filter out what's a viable option in this moment. And some of that you may not know. Some of that you may have to test out. You know, maybe it's grants to certain foundations who have funded things in the past but no longer fund those. You have to kind of see that for yourself sometimes. Or if you want to ask for a large ask, but now they're only doing smaller multiple awards. So instead of saying, let's ask for 50,000, you're only going to be able to ask for 5. Sometimes those are things you have to ask funders about. You have to, you know, make sure that you're following what they're already giving. And being able to ask those questions on the front end is really important. So as you're filtering in the information, understanding that time is relevant in this example. And so what is relevant right now is not something that was relevant 6 months or even a year ago. And so those are the tactical things that I would do as you're trying to pull in information in. I also think creating a space in your schedule to learn and to grow and to create and to think is really important now, even when it feels like that is not possible because of the restrictions of your time, because of the restrictions of your responsibilities. It is important to take the time to try to calm your brain and think about these things. Now, on the emotional side of this is a really hard piece because your nervous system, my nervous system, I say this, my nervous system feels fried. Like I feel like there's so much overwhelm, there's so much fear, there's so much nervousness, there's so much anxiety about what's next and how this will affect our communities and the people that we care about. And so as we're going through this, kind of having to make sure we filter in the calm, filter in the pieces that are soothing and helpful and make you feel energized and reinvigorated and not depressed and frustrated and annoyed, which is hard because sometimes you don't know what you're gonna get. But I think that as we're doing this kind of stuff and we're trying to navigate through this process, making sure that you pay attention to the fact that all of this is really hard. And there is not a time in history where we can think about the way that the world is happening right now. And especially for us in the nonprofit world, if you're a giver, if you care, if you are concerned about the welfare of others, this is a very overwhelming time. And I would say 100% of us feel like we don't really know what the answer is to how to fix things or how to help things or how to heal things. And so when you're a healer and a helper and you're someone who cares and you can't strategize or get clear on how to help solve some of these problems, that in itself causes this cycle of feeling of overwhelm and frustration. And so I just think that staying calm, staying focused, staying grounded, also knowing how to feed your soul with information and people and support that can help you do the work is going to be vital in how we move forward. And this is important work, and to find people that you can trust, that you can, and I don't mean that you know, that there aren't options out there for people who are talking about the same issue, who are working on the same issue. The messenger and the message will be different for every person. So what resonates with me, what book resonates, what workshop resonates, what person resonates with me as a leader is going to be completely different than every other person. And so making sure this person just resonates with you, even if it's like everybody loves this person, but you just can't get into it. You can't feel what they're feeling, or what they say doesn't resonate with you. Let it go and find somebody that does, and find something that does. Maybe it's not even on topic. Maybe it's somebody that's creating pottery or sculpting or whatever it is. It's what's going to feed your soul in this moment, because we need you, and we need people who care about others to be in a position to help and to rebuild and to do things in a way that are helpful for all. We need kind, caring, and compassionate and courageous leadership right now. And so making sure that you're fed and nourished and healthy is more important than ever. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing to the station, liking it, commenting, if you have suggestions for things you want me to talk about or things you'd like to discuss, I'd love to be open to any of that. And so I'm wishing all of you the best and thinking of all of you, and we can do this stuff together.